Hello, this is John, host of the Prepared Mind channel. I did a video earlier today, politics or precious metals. Let's talk about shit hitting the fan. And so I was advised that I should have a scotch and a cigar and get to it. Well, I had the cigar earlier and it was freaking cold outside, so I decided I would come back in. It was just too darn cold to sit out there and do the video. Plus, it was getting dark pretty quick. So I had an Arturo Fuente sun-grown Fuente in Maduro wrapper. It was delicious. So that's what the thumbnail picture was, of me smoking that and pouring myself this Glenlivet right here. And tonight is neat. It is a neat night. All right, so let's get down to politics and precious metals. And I guess I want to start by talking about the history of politics and the history of money. Politics, the political nature of humanity, our politics, is very, very important. It is who we are as a culture and as a people. And without a steady political system, which means a rule of governance or administration, some sort of standard by which civilization can live, you really can't have a stable culture, a stable system that can see prosperity exist. Prosperity takes place or manifests itself in many ways, in my opinion. One of those is a uniform culture. Another one is a system of trade. Another one is a system of peace. A peaceful coexistence with our fellow man. If we don't have good politics, you can't have prosperity. You can't have a financial system. You can't have a trade and barter system. You can't have anything. And you certainly can't have peace. So, that is why men have instituted governments among themselves. It's to keep the peace and help the prosperity, and to help the culture grow. And so that's really what we face with shit hitting the fan, is a loss of all of that. A loss of the political system, a loss of our prosperity, a loss of our economic ability. So I want to kind of go back in time a little bit. Go back to about the 1200s. And I want to go back to the time when the Knights Templar came into being. They were a paramilitary, para-religious organization. I'm sure a lot of you know about the Knights Templar. And they were based out of France. And at the time, the economy, believe it or not, was based upon sheep. Sheep. That was what their culture was based on. That was the sound basis for their economy. Trading of meat and wool off of sheep. And that really gives you an idea, even just 800 years ago, how far we have come. There were kings, and there were counts, and there were barons, and there were dukes. There were lords, there was aristocracy. And they were not really great administrators. And the church also was there. And they were barbaric. Let's fucking face it. They were barbaric. They didn't have a system of coinage. They didn't have a system of laws. It was basically a very brutal, very barbaric. But they considered themselves to be high and mighty compared to the Scots or the Danes or the Vikings. They believed that because they had church religion, that was the foundation for their civilization. It was just one crazy, crazy world. And at that time, at 1000 AD, the Muslims were a far superior culture than that of Europe, believe it or not. They were far more civil. They were far more interested in philosophy and education, mathematics, poetry. They were far more sophisticated. But Europe kind of came up out of the ashes. of the Dark Ages, and they started developing a system of administration, of government, of law. You've got to have law, some sort of justice, right? Some sort of uniform method for determining what is right and wrong. And they started with canon law and legal principles developed out of that. It was a fucking mess, though. I mean, it really was basically a state of shit. It's the fan. They had nothing. So let's again look at what the basis of their civilization was. The foundation was sheep. Sheep. Trading the wool and trading the meat. Now, if you look at this really from a very fundamental principle, that provided them with Maslow's hierarchy, the base of it, the foundation: food, shelter, clothing, and protection. So the sheep provided food, and it provided the clothing, the wool, both skins and then garments and blankets made of wool. They needed that. You had to have it. Shelter could be made out of sticks and stones, right? That was shelter. It was a very primitive world. I like to think of all those cathedrals that were built back then, but they were built through taxation of the church. They required people to pay money to them, and then they would build these grand buildings starting back then. But everyone else lived in fucking hovels. And they needed money. And so, I said, do we talk about politics tonight, or we talk about precious metals? Well, if you had a sheep, that's not a whole lot of wealth. And it takes so many hours to raise a sheep, to put time into it, food, to tend the sheep. So that's what gave things their value. What gave something its value is how much effort a human had to spend in the way of time or labor in order to acquire it. That is how something was established. That's how its value is established. So if it took 100 man hours to bring a lamb up to the age of sheep, then I had 100 hours worth. And let's just say a man was a miner, and he mined silver or gold or some other useful metal. His hours that went into finding that and getting it, procuring it, gave it its value. And metals were very valuable: nickel, iron, copper, lead. Steel was an alloy that was made of various metals: tin, antimony, and then of course silver and gold. And when you had one sheep, it had value. If you had 10, it had more value. If you had 100 or 1,000 sheep, that represented a lot of wealth for you, and you had to manage it. So when you look at how do you trade those sheep, and how do you do business? If you were a sheep farmer and you wanted to sell meat, or you wanted to sell wool, and you had a large farm, right? You had many workers that worked there. Say you were the lord of your own land, and of course you'd pay fealty to the next higher lord. You would have to take all that wool, that meat, and sell it, exchange it for something. It was very difficult to say what the value of all that wool was, and then try and get the walnut farmer to give you the proper amount of walnuts. So they decided, through trade, through various means, that silver had a certain value, that gold had a certain value, and of course that was based on the man hours taken to procure it. And so you could say something was worth so much silver or so much gold. And so those metals became the medium of exchange for different goods and services, when straight bartering didn't make any sense. It didn't work. And so, a weight in precious metal became the money standard. And at that time also were the Knights Templar. You could have your house ransacked. So you would take your gold or your silver, those precious things that others were willing to kill for, and you would send it to the commandery to put in their vault, their safe, and it would be, for a small fee, taken care of. It was protected. It was under lock and key and protected with sword. And that is how the banking system developed. Right? The bank, the place where you keep it, and then they would loan out gold and silver for usury, for rates. That was the world back then. That was it. It was very simple, but it was based on honest money. And what kept it in check, what made it work, what made it prosper was an administrative or government system that was reliable, that was ethical, moral, decent, and it represented the will and needs of the people. Very simple principles. And so when we talk about why is our nation falling to shit, why is it coming apart at the seams, it's because the administrative apparatus, the government, is no longer ethical. It is no longer moral. And the money itself, rather than being based on the value of precious metal, gold or silver, something of real value, it is now based on nothing. It's based on paper. And that's the dilemma we're facing. Our economic system has failed. They borrow more money than is created, and they've destroyed our world. The people can't rely on the government, and we can't rely on money. Politics has failed, and that is why everyone's putting what little hope there is left. We're going all in with Trump, hoping he's it, because we see shit hitting the fan. And if he's not his own man, if he's just another shill, another puppet, right? If he's just an establishment goon selling us down the river, it's the last ship out. We're fucked. So Trump is it. And if Trump fails, and even if he is his own man, as I pointed out in the last few videos, we can fall. And we are like those people 800, 900, 1,000 years ago. We're going to be reduced to relying on ourselves. What resources we have, both to live, eat, to find food, shelter, clothing, protection, and then to just try and live. It is going to be horrific. And we call that the apocalypse, or shit, it's the fan. And when that happens, there's going to be a period of time where it's chaos and bedlam, where mayhem is going to be, the rule rather than the exception. And we're screwed for it. What can you do? So we talk about prepping, and then we get back to, well, what is it that you're really doing? Well, you're trying to live. You're trying to live. And so how do you do it? Well, you save food. You make sure you've got the ability to get clean water, clothing. Clothing's not a hard one. Clothing's everywhere. The shelter also, homes. That's really not a hard thing. Let's just say only half the people get wiped out in the first year, which is an impossibly high success rate. There'd still be plenty of housing. So those things aren't the problem, but survival is. And people in our industrialized nation and society don't know how to grow or get food. So there's going to be this time when I believe people are going to be starving, and they're going to be lawless. Especially those with no moral foundation, no moral compunction. They will kill. So we talk about buying ammunition and weapons. That other part, that neglected leg or neglected block at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy, which is protection, self-preservation. Back when the aristocracy was running Europe, they offered that protection in their kingdom, and there was a price for it. You had to pay fealty. You had to pay tax, and it's always been there. The power, the lord, the they would protect you, but there's a fee, and if you don't pay the fee, you're kicked off the land. You're without their protection, very much like mafia, wouldn't you say? But they were sanctioned by the church. But when shit hits the fan in our world, we're looking at a very lawless state. Every man looking for himself, looking out for himself. And so what is the currency? Well, the currency is going to be just like it was with the sheep. It's going to be the food in your mouth, or the food you can put in your mouth. And you're going to have to protect yourself. But hopefully there comes a point when we grow through that, and we start looking again at some stability, some culture, some local law, right? Some sense of the body politic, that is, the people governing themselves. And you're going to need a way to do that, right? And there's going to need to be a medium of exchange, or a currency, so that a person with chickens can deal with someone else who sells vegetables. So, what is that currency going to be? Well, imagine the United States government crumbling, going away. It's not going to be Federal Reserve dollars. They're hardly going to be worth burning. Literally, they're worth nothing. And so, what is it that we really have? We have what we can buy now. And we're in a good position because of the industrial nature of our world. We can buy very valuable goods, very valuable commodities right now at this time, very inexpensively. That is, machinery and robots and automation and assembly line type production creates things very inexpensively. Can you imagine the amount of time it would take for one human being to make one .22 caliber round? Right? What would this cost for you to make? To go find the lead and then melt it and pour it into a mold, and same with the brass to create it, and then the chemistry to make both the gunpowder and the priming material, and then how to make it uniform and perfect so that it fires from a weapon, and they all fire the same, so they have a regular ballistic value, meaning you can hit what the fuck you're aiming at. How much would one of those cost? It would take you hours and days just to make one. Well, right now, that's about 5 cents. 5 pennies. Even 5 pieces of copper, 5 pennies. How long would it take you to go mine enough ore to make 5 pennies worth of copper? Well, it's not just the mining, but the heat that has to go to it and the equipment used to make the penny. We laugh at pennies, we throw them at each other as a joke, but the amount of manpower it takes to create that is enormously inexpensive in an industrial world. In a post-SHTF world, metals are going to be impossible to mine. We're only going to have those resources that are already available. So what we can do now with our money, what you can buy now, is incredible. It's of enormous value because you're getting it at a major discounted rate. So what is the currency in shit hits the fan? Well, it's barter where you can, and you only barter what you're willing and able to live without. So really, what has the most value? Well, it's going to be food, and it's going to be ammunition. What is this bullet? What is this .22 caliber round going to be worth a year after shit hits the fan? Well, this ridiculous nickel, it's tiny. It can kill a human, it can kill a deer, it can kill a squirrel, a dog. It can perform a lot of work for you. It's a nickel now. What's it going to be worth then? A whole chicken? Well, if it can kill a deer, it's worth a deer, is it not? If it can save your life, it's worth your life. That. So when we talk about money, we talk about currency when shit hits the fan. 45 caliber, 45 ACP, 185 grain. Nope, I take that back. 225 grain, 220 grain hollow point. That right there, what's it going to be worth? Well, that's worth a nickel, and that's worth a quarter right now. But what's it going to be worth when shit hits the fan? Well, it can kill a deer, it can kill a dog, it can kill a chicken, it can kill a human. Right? It's got copper, it's got brass, it's got lead, it's got a primer and powder. That's pretty valuable. Could that be a point or a medium of exchange? Yes. Right? This coin right here, that is a ½ ounce, 1/2 ounce silver coin. Right now it's worth about 10 bucks. That means it's worth about, if this is a quarter, 4 times 10, 40 of these. You see where I'm going with currency when shit hits the fan? This is a pretty small denomination, ½ ounce. I've got full ounces, I've got quarter ounces. I don't even want to go down to 10th ounces. But these are things that all have value. That has value. This has value. I think that ammunition, once things settle down, it's still going to be extremely valuable and possibly irreplaceable. But at the same time, when things calm down, it could become something of a currency. And also, precious metal, gold and silver. I really like silver. It's more of the people's money, whereas gold is a merchant's money. I mean, a ½ ounce of gold is $600. A full ounce of gold is $1,200. I mean, when you look at the difference between silver and gold, even a small amount of gold, how do you buy anything with it? How do you get the proper change? It's very difficult. So that's why gold is so much more difficult to think of as a type of currency. And just go back in history again. Congress originally set the price or value of gold. When the nation was founded, 1 ounce of gold was $20. 1 ounce of silver was $1. And this would be a 50-cent piece, ½ an ounce, and a quarter of an ounce was a quarter. Funny how our money and where it came from, right? Quarters used to be made out of silver, and 1/4 of an ounce was what 1/4 was made of. And it stayed that way from 1789 all the way until I believe the Federal Reserve came about. And then they started devaluing our money, and they took us off of the original setting, which is 1 ounce of gold is 20 bucks. And since then we've had inflation. And now an ounce of gold, rather than being $20, is $1,200. So that's 5 times 10 is 50. And another 20, 5, 10. 60 ounces of gold to replace 1 ounce of gold back then. The money's been devalued incredible amounts. It's worthless. So what good is this? This is a big thing that preppers say, a lot of them. You can't eat that silver. So why have it? Let's just say you've got enough money, you've got all the preps you need. You've got 1 year, 2 year, 5 years worth of food. You've got all the scotch you need. You've got all the ammunition that you could possibly need. You have enough ammunition that you've got plenty that you could use for currency in the future. Right? Currency, another hollow point. Let's say you've got currency for the next 50 years in small denominations, ammunition. Right now, you still have wealth left over. Are you going to leave it in the bank? Are you going to leave it in the stock market? I'm really one of those guys that says, put your fucking money where your mouth is. Do it, literally. Put your fucking money where your mouth is. A lot of people talk a good fucking game. They do. Buy gold, buy silver, prep. How many people really do it? I'm in the process of turning all of my liquid wealth, all of my wealth in dollars, US dollars, converting it into something real. And by real, I mean silver, or scotch, or ammunition, or food. I'm finishing that up. I am now divesting myself of US dollars because they are literally worthless. They are only valuable because somebody is willing to take them. I really feel that. Why? Because we go right back to politics. Back to the very beginning again. Our political system is failing. As a result, our economic system is failing. The two are intertwined. Politics and economics. Economics and politics. If you have any wealth, when the politics fails, your money fails if it's not based on something real. That is, if you can't hold it, it's not real. It's only what it's made out of. So a piece of paper, when shit hits the fan, is only a piece of paper. A round of ammunition is a round of ammunition. This can save my life. What is my life worth? It's worth far more than a ridiculous piece of paper. When you run out of ammunition in your weapon and you're being fired at by the enemy, you realize how valuable this is. You know, these are worth about $10 a piece. Say you make 10 of those a day, or 20, or 30, or 50. That's something real you can hold on to. It's real. At the end of the day, it's still silver. It's still precious. And this is the earliest form of currency, silver and gold. It's the earliest form of currency because it always has value. It's never been worth nothing. Now, maybe someone would say, that's beautiful silver you have, John, but I'm not trading you for ammunition or scotch, and I'm not trading it for food because I don't have enough, and I don't think silver is worth much to me right now. But it's always going to be silver. It never goes away. Gold will always be gold. So I say get ready. I say prep. I say turn your dollars into something that is always going to be valuable. And I have said buy ammunition, buy weapons, buy food. You know, stock your pantry with real food, but also invest in long-term food storage. It never goes down in value. In itself, that is an investment. Literally. If the cost of food goes up 2%, 4%, 6% a year, you're making that. It's a hedge. You're not losing money. Same with ammunition. It can go up and down in value. It's a commodity. It's a commodity. The same way your scotch is, right? The same way your silver is. It's a commodity. But it's real. It's not speculative. It's real. You can hear it. It's not a piece of paper. Politics is fleeting. Politics is based on the actions of humans. So it's always been believed that you need to have things that are real. A shoebox full of promissory notes are only as the good as the man who promised that they were worth something. So we go way back in time again to that early bank when the man said, I've got 10,000 ounces of gold and 10,000 ounces of silver in my bank, and I'll loan you some. And he loans a note, and people start trading these notes, saying they're backed by all that money in the vault. And it turns out the bankers loaned 50,000 notes, and he's only got 1,000. When people go to recover what those notes say they're worth and the money's not there, they discover the worthlessness of the paper. It's just paper. That is the problem with the system we have now. It is not backed by anything except another's willingness to accept it in exchange. This is silver. It's always going to have value. It's always going to have value. Always. Ammunition will always have value. That scotch will always have value. So put your money where your mouth is. If you believe the system is collapsing, if you believe you need to prepare, you need to look at your money. I am pulling my money out of the stock market. I've got somewhere around $22,000 left in there that I'm going to pull out. I'll pay the penalties, I'll pay my taxes, and I'm going to turn it into something real. Because when the system collapses, say it collapses for a month, for 2 months, for 6 months, for a year, and there's this semblance of government out there, and eventually we know it's going to be returned to right, but it'll be a different world. Do you think the government that reinstitutes itself under whatever color of law it comes about, whether it's another republic or whether it's something else, do you think they're going to accept Federal Reserve notes a year after shit hits the fan? You're out of your fucking mind if you think they're going to accept that. They're going to say, you could have gone into that vault over there at the local bank, take all those notes and just put them in your closet. That's not real money. You didn't earn it. It doesn't represent anything. It's worthless. But I'll tell you what. Right now my money buys gold, buys scotch, buys food, buys ammunition. Those are real things of value. And I can turn around and sell them. And shit hits the fan, they're going to be mighty useful. I can consume the food and use the ammunition to protect myself. But everything is an investment. It is real wealth. It has real value. Real value. This has value to protect me, and it has barter value. And when the politics comes back around, when the world is again trying to be civilized based on the stability of people in charge, they're going to know and remember, because they always do, that silver has value. My stocks and bonds, worthless. Worthless if shit hits the fan. And let me go so far as to say that even governments that don't go to shit hits the fan, that just restructure, they'll take all the money that's available, the money supply, i.e. paper money, and devalue it. Or make you trade old notes for new notes. So let's say they change the name of the Federal Reserve to the National Reserve. And so no store will accept Federal Reserve notes. You've got to take your Federal Reserve notes to the National Reserve Bank and exchange them. And they'll give you whatever denomination they see fit. And you'll take anything you can fucking get. But those new notes, those new National Reserve notes, guess what? That silver can be purchased with them. And I can take this silver and I can go purchase notes, and the notes can purchase silver. This can purchase Federal Reserve notes, and Federal Reserve notes at this time can purchase silver. After shit hits the fan, Federal Reserve notes are going to be worth nothing. Stocks and bonds are promises of sorts. Because you put money in it, you're supposed to get money back out of it if it can be sold. If a company goes belly up, you lose your ass. It is a risk, it's a gamble. It's fucking worthless. So why would you do that? Especially at a time when the leaders are morally bankrupt. Why would you risk everything you have ever done? Why? Why would you do it? When you can turn what you have done with the muscle on your bodies and the brains between your ears into something real. People love to say, well, I'm getting 10% on my money. I got a friend of mine makes 20% a year on stock market. And I ask him, I go, what happens? What happens when you wake up one morning and there's a stock market crash? What's your stock worth then? And he says, well, nothing. I said, right. So basically, you're buying emotional feelings with those stocks. Because if it does crash, it's worth nothing. But when I go to my vault, when I go to the person who's keeping all of this safe for me, and I say, let me see my silver, I have something that is always going to be real. It's always going to be there. When I go into my closet and I pull out my magazines that are loaded, check out my ammunition supplies, go into my larder and observe all my scotch, it's real. Politics is fleeting. Politics is men, their morality, their desires. And when it goes to shit, they take the money with them. So it's best, I think, to convert your money into things useful, into things that will always have value. I can turn around and sell that ammunition right there for far more than I bought it for. All of my ammunition. Right now, I bought this silver cheap. In just a few days, I've made $100 on some of the silver I bought. Other silver I bought, it's gone down a dime. But I still have every coin, the full weight of it. And it just sits there. And it can only be worth half an ounce. All those coins are half ounce silver. They're worth a half an ounce. They're always worth a half an ounce of silver. Doesn't matter if the stock market crashes, that's half an ounce of silver. That's ammunition. That doesn't change. When shit hits the fan because of the morally bankrupt country and Congress and Supreme Court and cops and bureaucrats, governors, rulers, powers that be, my stuff is always going to have value. That is why being a prepper puts you in a position to protect yourself and protect your wealth. But you can only do it by converting your wealth, your liquid assets, into something of real value. This game was played by Ron Paul just a few years ago, talking about gold is real money. And he was talking with Ben Bernanke, Shlomo. And they talked about gold being real money, and paper is just paper. But what are you going to do? What's your choice? And if you don't have any money, and I say buy food, buy ammunition, buy guns, and you're like, I don't have the money, I can't buy all that stuff, I'm really sorry. I really am. I've been doing this a lot of years, and I've always put myself in a position to better myself in every financial transaction. Now, the big one I lost was my marriage. That cost me a lot. But, I still have a lot. But I'm 46, and it takes time to build wealth. And it takes good decision-making skills. And right now, I think the proper decision to make, this is for me, I'm not offering anyone else advice. The proper decision to make is to turn something that is potentially worthless in the snap of a finger. Goes from something that is perceived as valuable to something that is completely worthless. Think back to 2008, when the government freaked the fuck out, and the housing market collapsed, and the stock market collapsed, and gold doubled in value. More than doubled. Same with silver. Because people remembered what real money is and what real value is. It's the real thing, right? Is what you have real. Stocks and bonds are not real. They're promises. Dollars are debt. If you own $1, you owe that paid back. This is owned by me, not the Federal Reserve. It is not a note. It is not a promise to pay. When you own $1, you own the debt that dollar represents. When I own this is mine. There's no debt behind it. I paid for it. It cannot be taxed. It cannot be taken. It is mine. It is real. And that's the conversation I wanted to have about politics and precious metals. This is precious. This round of ammunition is precious. It's priceless compared to a paper dollar when shit hits the fan. Absolutely priceless, because that represents the ability to save your life. And when times are better, it's going to have barter value. It's going to be a small denomination, a type of currency. The same way bartering anything would be worth some value. So that's the talk I wanted to have with you guys. I said politics or precious metal. A lot of you guys said both. Do both. The only thing I wasn't going to do is smoke a cigar in my house. So I smoked it outside, and then I brought what left of my scotch inside. Turn what you have into something valuable while you can. That's what I tell myself. And I put my money where my mouth is. And I sleep better at night. I sleep better at night. I don't have to worry about other people taking care of me. I don't have to worry about the government. I don't have to worry about Wall Street. I don't have to worry about bankers. Isn't that fucking marvelous? You could be the same way. I have a job just like everyone else. I make money just like everyone else. But I don't have the worry that everyone else does. I like having real coinage. Something real. My wealth will not dissolve in a stock market crash. My life, I have a better chance of protecting because of this. And I don't have to worry about food when shit hits the fan. What about you? What kind of decisions are you interested in making? I know this has been a very long video, but it's an important subject. It's probably the subject. Is the more you have earned, the bigger and better chance you have of getting through shit hits the fan. The ability to purchase things that will save your life and save your family. I've made that my life's mission, creating wealth. A little smaller scale than old Trump-a-roo, but, that's what I've done. And I bent my mind around it. I've prepared my whole life. But that doesn't mean I'm stupid. And you guys are the same way. If you've prepared your whole life for the last 20 years or 10 or 5 or even 1, you've come to a realization that's put you in a better mental perspective to deal with the world we're facing now. Facing war with Russia. Stone Ages, man. We get blown back to the Stone Ages if that happens. If the power grid gets taken down, the food supply ruined, who knows what it's going to take. But it won't take much, because this is a very fragile system we have. And it's being run by bankrupt, immoral people. And the very worst among them is still trying to get the presidency, Hillary Clinton. By hook or by crook, that bitch is going to try and take it. She can still have Obama declare martial law. Game over. Your Federal Reserve notes, I didn't put any on the table. Because I don't have any more here. There's some in the bank left. And every paycheck will get turned into something real. Something useful. I'll keep enough cash to pay the bills, and the rest gets turned into things useful. Whiskey, food, ammunition. Stacking the silver. I can turn that silver right there back into cash. Anytime I want. I can go get spot price right now for it. Hasn't cost me anything. But I can't lose it either. I can't lose it. I can turn all of that back into cash and go buy property and buy houses and buy cars. But you can't, they can't crash the market and take it from me. They can't crash the market and say, well, you know, this is what you had, and the government says, well, that's all you have left. They can't do that to me. I have protected myself. That is real. And one last thing. Paper gold and paper silver and Bitcoin are not real when the system crashes. Those are notes. Those are promises to pay. And they're speculative. And I know there's a lot of people that love Bitcoin. But if the electronic system goes down, what is it? It is just a Ponzi scheme. In a year after shit hits the fan, will anyone remember what Bitcoin was? Will anyone remember what promissory notes for gold is? If you pulled out a gold contract you bought and try and collect it, who's going to give you anything for it? You could give me $1 million gold contract a year after shit hits the fan and say, John, I want to trade you that for that half-ounce coin. And I'm going to say, you want to trade me half an ounce of silver for a piece of paper that's non-redeemable? What good is it? So like the Federal Reserve, those that sell notes saying that, you know, you own gold, you've bought speculative gold, all you've done is bought a right, a license, and that's it. It's just a piece of paper saying it's worth something, and you can only sell it to someone else who wants to pay you for it. I won't buy a piece of paper. No, sir. Won't do it. Physical silver, physical gold, ammunition, lead, copper, brass. That is wealth. Bottle of Glenlivet. Now that's value. That's real. I was going to bring in some MREs, but there's not very much room on my table here. MRE, what's that going to be worth? A good solid meal when shit hits the fan. If you don't have food, someone may trade you a stack of silver, right, for that. But what's it really worth? Only what someone's willing to trade. No one's going to trade anything for paper money. You can't eat it. You can't eat that silver there either. But when things settle down, after shit hits the fan, if you've got the excess wealth, if you've got enough wealth to start stacking, this is what I thought. That is worth more. It's definitely worth more. That's worth more than paper. I like that sound. It's the sound of something real. Alright, I guess I've belabored the point long enough. And I want to thank you all for watching, subscribing, sharing my videos. The channel has grown tremendously since the election started. I think about 2 weeks before the election, my channel took off. A lot of people became very concerned. I would say gravely concerned. And with good cause, good reason. You know, the world is a very uncertain place. Very uncertain. And I think my channel has offered value because you guys have responded to my videos. You've made yourselves available for commenting and for answering comments and for exchanging ideas. Again, something of value. So, that'll take care of it. Please share this video with people, hit the share button down there. And send it to people that you care about. Let them know that they need to start preparing. It's never too late to start. Well, it could be too late. But you got to start sometime, and you got to start somewhere. So it might as well be now if you haven't yet. Okay, this is John, host of the Prepared Mind channel. Chance favors the prepared mind. Is yours. Is your mind prepared? Are you prepared? Semper Fi.